All right, welcome back. So the last video in this series where we're covering all the equipment that you're going to bring to the Orion Training Group Small Unit Maneuver and Small Unit Sustainment classes, talked about items that are worn on the body, discussing your clothing, your pocket items, and the fanny pack. So now we're going to move up to the next level of equipment, which is your fighting load. Now, for the purpose of the class, your fighting load that you bring can be whatever. And again, depending on the work that's going to be done and your job, that'll determine what you're going to use for the platform to carry your fighting load. Boil it down to two categories. You have armored and non-armored load carrying platforms. The armored is the ubiquitous plate carrier. Everybody knows what a plate carrier is, and if you don't, well, I've got a video for that, so you can go check it out on the channel. So for non-armored solutions, you have some options, although really you're either going to be running a chest rig or you're going to run belt kit. Both are just fine. I obviously prefer chest rigs, and before anyone out there gets super freaked out about this rig, we are going to talk a little bit about it, but also I have a video on the channel that discusses ammunition loadouts and why this rig is built out the way that it is and why some of the other fighting loads are built out the way they are. So you can go check that out. That'll get much more into the weeds than we're going to get into it with this video here. For the sake of the class, we're really just looking at a basic infantry loadout. So for the class, 6 magazines, 1 quart of water, an IFAK if you run comms. Have your comms on your fighting load platform, and then you're going to want signal kit. All right, so we'll go through this whole rig, talk about what's in it really quick and why things are carried where they are, and then who makes the components of this chest rig. All right, so the things that should and can go on your fighting load. I've said this many times on posts and Instagram, and I've covered it in other videos here on the channel. When you think about your fighting load, you want to think about items that take life and save life. All right, if they don't contribute to one of those two ends, then it likely does not need to be on your fighting load, and it can go into your pack. So you've got your basic loadout of however many magazines you're going to choose to carry. Again, for the class, we recommend a 6 magazine loadout, working off the basic infantryman setup, but ultimately for the class, it's not a huge deal if you've got less, but that's the general expectation is you have something like that. On this rig, I have 10 mags, and that comes from, again, I was Force Recon for 17 of my 20 years. We focus a lot on deep ground reconnaissance where we don't have mortars in support, didn't have artillery in support, you may not even have air, so we would carry a lot more firepower out with us to be our own fire support and to sustain through potentially multiple gunfights trying to fight our way to a pickup position should we be compromised and pursued by the enemy. So without going too much more into detail, that's why so many mags, but this is also scalable. I can pull out mags and pull the inserts out, and it'll tuck in tighter to me, and I just carry fewer mags if the mission doesn't require me to carry so much if I have more fire support. Up front, I've got 2 frag pouches. I do not have any party favors in there right now, but we'd always carry 2 frags. Obviously, that doesn't apply to you. Don't worry about it. For water, I've got 1 quart on here right now in this Tracer Tactical utility pouch. 2 quarts is better, and the US style 2-quart canteen is like the king of canteens because with your water sources, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about the ruck, it's better to have a source that is collapsible than rigid, but there's give and take, and we'll talk about that in the next video. Then over here I have my signaling pouch. So I've got chem lights in a bundle of various colors, and some I carry on the kit. So if I have to do any immediate signaling, I carry my buzz saw And in this case, it's made with some LED lights. And then, although it is spent, this is where I would carry smoke grenades. So at least one of these would be a screening smoke. So if you make contact, it puts out a high volume of smoke and obscures us from enemy observation, making it a little bit easier to break contact. And then the other one would be an additional screening smoke, or it would be colored based off the signal plan. Also in this pouch, I have a small red lens light that I use for my map, and a larger signal panel than the handkerchief sized one that I carry in my nut ruck. All right, so a little bit of that redundancy, but it's also a bigger panel so it can be seen from further away, which is what I would want if I'm signaling aircraft into a zone, or if the ground station that I'm going to signal is further away, then I use the larger signal panel. All right. Moving down to this dangler. It's attached from Recon Serco. It's their Evasion chest pack. Pretty cool piece of kit because you can wear it in multiple different ways. It can be just a dedicated chest pack by the name, or it can be a hanger. And it is my IFAK. All right. So all the medical that I need is in here. And if you're wondering, well, how do I set up my IFAK? You want to go off of the March pause algorithm and make sure that you have interventions that fit all those categories. So massive hemorrhaging, airway, respirations, or all that. Have something in throughout that IFAK. There's a lot of resources out there for it, and this isn't a video specific to that. Part of that IFAK is the tourniquets, right? The tourniquets are out and more immediately accessible and protected in these J Tactical Solutions pouches, and they're carried up high, so I can access both tourniquets with just one hand. So if one arm is wounded, I have the use of just one. I can access both of those tourniquets, presuming that I'm probably gonna have more than one bleed, especially if I'm not wearing body armor. All right, I have those up there, and then also in the chest strap, I have my Garmin wrist GPS. I'm not real fond of wearing things on my wrists, and I already have a compass on one and my watch on the other, so I have my GPS attached to my rig rather than the handheld in my pocket. Your Garmin wrist GPS can double as the watch, and that's normally how I use it, but you have to consider how long you're going to be out in the field and how many batteries this thing's going to eat. So to mitigate packing out a bunch of batteries, you can have just a normal watch, and then this serves as a backup watch, as well as providing you with immediate feedback of positional data. Also on the rig, we've got comms. This is just a placeholder, right? Just a piece of plastic, nothing fancy. So don't get your hopes up that we're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna tell you how to get a hold of military communication hardware. This is just a placeholder, all right? Comms are great. Comms are something you definitely need to think about. But if you don't yet have a team, a group, a community to use those comms with, then they're not going to do you a ton of good at the moment, but you can still learn about them now, have a few radios on hand, and then as you develop your teams and community, you'd be like, hey, I happen to already have some comms, and we can employ those in the next time we go out in the woods and want to train and walk around, right? And then the last thing that I have on here is a good field knife, right? You don't need to have a fixed blade necessarily, but it's highly recommended to have a good field knife on your kit, and this can double as a fighting knife as well, right? A lot of fighting knives are far more slim and lightweight and easier to draw out. Again, understand the context of where you're carrying it and the likelihood of using it for that application. So on a plate carrier, I know I'm going into a fight. So I have smaller, slimmer fighting knives that are easier to remove in close quarters. This is far more likely to be used for field tasks. So it's a larger knife, right? And that is from MB Blades, their buckskin gunfighter blade. All right, and that is the fighting load, all right? It's not so important about how you set everything up. Everyone's gonna be a little bit different in how they choose to do it. What matters is that it makes sense based on your billet. What is your job within the team, right? Maybe you are the sensors guy, so you've got SDRs or you've got drone remotes and things like that. So you have to consider about where you place those things. And you definitely want to avoid putting fragile items inside your chest rig and your fighting load. At least considering what you're going to be laying on when you go prone, because you don't want to go prone and then crush an item that's necessary mission essential equipment, right? Keep that stuff a little more protected. Other than that, you just have these base requirements, you know, bullets, grenades, stabby stick, things that take life. Radio kind of falls into both categories, right? Because I can call in more support, I can coordinate the elements that are on the ground. And you know, military, I can call for fire support, so taking and saving life. Signaling, water, medical, that all goes into saving life because it brings my support to me, lets them know where I'm at, provides screening for me with the smokes. Got to have water, and so I have this emergency water on the fighting load, going through the water in the ruck first, and then this, and of course the IFAK if I start leaking red stuff. So that's the gist of it. But again, far beyond the importance of taking time with your equipment, setting it up, walking around with it, training in it, is making sure you are training, right? You get the equipment, you put it on, you walk around your garage, your apartment, your house, backyard, whatever. Maybe you take it on a hike and you just walk a trail in the woods close to your house. That's a good start, but you want to actually get out and use it. Take it to the range, work through your magazines, do reloads from all the pouches, indexing magazines back in as you do your attack reloads, and then find places where you can train, whether it be you come take a class with Orion Training Group or somebody else. You know, there's a lot of good people out there, and there's a lot more people offering training in this environment and not just CQB and flat range. Get out, seek training from competent professionals, and then once you've received that instruction, continue that training on your time and build community, and then bring those people with you and then train together. So until the next video, I'm Blake Flannery from Maneuver Training Solutions and Orion Training Group.